You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast, your guide to living a more purposeful life. Welcome, everybody, to episode 196 of the On Purpose Podcast. As always, we're humbled to be here with you. And this week is a dream come true for me, or a vision come true. Maybe not a dream, a vision. And I couldn't be happier to bring the story of Don and Mela to you, but more importantly, how I get to bring you this story is what I'm very excited about. But before I get to that, and before you hear from these two, I gotta remind you to pay your bill. Pay your bill, right? The New Year's come and gone. You got some new bills. It's a new year, so get over and help us out on Patreon, where you can select a membership that fits your budget from $2 to $50. Like, think about that. That's literally one less Starbucks a month, one less whatever the hell you do a month for a small amount. And it helps us do what we do, which is continue to chase our goal of becoming the most purposeful, the most impactful podcast in the world. And we can only do that with your support, and that allows us to bring you stories like you're going to hear this week. So get over there, help out, like, subscribe, follow us on your favorite podcast platforms. Join us at patreon.com/the On Purpose Podcast and help us build this community. So now, let's get to the interview. Don and Mela, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I was telling you just a little bit briefly off air, this is literally like a dream come true to me. When I wrote my book, and then two, when I set out with Andrea on this new life, one of the visions I had was just meeting people that maybe our paths in life would never have crossed if we weren't traveling, and getting to share their stories. So I'm honored and humbled that you're here with me today.
No, we're excited to be part of it.
So do me a favor and let's tell our audience a little bit about your background and how we got you here today.
How far do you want to go back?
You tell me, man. It's your show. We'll go way back if you want.
Why don't we just go back to our previous life that led us into this current?
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Don and I both lived in Los Angeles for about 20 years. We only knew each other for 6 or 7 at the end of that. But basically, by the time we got to being in Los Angeles for 20 years, we were done with it. We were stressed out, feeling like we just couldn't keep up with the bills, and we weren't happy. We weren't terribly unhappy. We had good lives, but we wanted a change.
Yeah, so we started looking at where we might move to. We're like, well, moving somewhere else could be great. And we'd want to find a good community and a good culture and a good climate. And the more we talked about it, the more we realized there was no way we were going to be able to fly somewhere for a weekend, be in some city or some suburb or out in the woods somewhere, and be like, yeah, this is where we're going to settle down. And so we're like, how are we going to get out and see more places? So Mela came to me one day, and I'd always loved tiny house builds and bus builds and van conversions, and she said, well, what if we bought a bus and we just travel around and until we find places that we want to be at? And I said, absolutely. And like from that moment on, our entire focus shifted, and we were just preparing to find a bus, got a bus, build out our home in it so that we could travel full time.
Yeah, and you guys, we'll get to the bus stuff here in a minute for the audience, and we'll make sure they get your YouTube link at the end so they can get over there, subscribe, and follow along. But, all right, so that kind of gives the crew and the community out there an idea where this story goes and how we came across. But just like the big bus they're driving in now, I can't just have you jump in and start going. We got to warm you up first, right? Like the engine doesn't like that. Your brains don't like that. So now here's going to be the challenge. This will be kind of fun because usually these are solo questions. But since you two live together and spend all your time together in this bus, I'm going to need a couple's consensus on your answers here.
Okay.
No pressure, though. No pressure. All right, Don and Mela, you are stranded on a deserted island without your bus. You are not getting off this island. And you're going to have one food that you guys both get to agree upon eating for the rest of your lives. What are you going to eat?
Avocados.
Are you an avocado guy too, Don?
I think if we could have avocados and I could fish for some fish and wrap the fish in the avocado,
Okay,
we'd
yeah.
be okay.
Yeah, you would sustain yourself.
Yeah. Get some healthy fats
Mm.
and some seafood.
Yeah, but there's no baked good in that, buddy.
I'd be fit.
All right.
For only the fourth time in my life, I'd be fit again.
All right, now each of you get this one. A superpower you would want to have, and why would you want it?
As opposed to ones we already have.
Ones you want to disclose to the public.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I mean, my mind first goes to fly because, we get to walk around on the earth and drive around on the earth. And, I mean, it's not the same being in an airplane flying, but to just be able to fly by myself.
Sure.
I feel like it would be, and we get to swim. Swimming is, in the ocean can be such a wonderful, stress-relieving, calming thing to do. I think it takes us out of our walking on the earth to be swimming, and I feel like flying would be one of those similar things that would be freeing.
Okay, fine, yeah.
Yeah, I think flying is a pretty top-of-mind one. I can remember having dreams about flying since
Sure.
I was like 6 years old. So it's easy to say flying. I don't know. I think if I had to really think about it, would I want it to be something that's advantageous to my future, or
Yeah.
things like that? Do I want to be clairvoyant, or
that's a good
tell
one.
the future, or just turn my skin blue instantly? That could be fun too.
Avatar.
Yep. Party trick.
Yeah, there you go. All right, favorite book.
Ooh. I think currently my top book is still Trevor Noah's autobiography. I think it's called Born a Crime.
That's right.
Yeah, I think mine's my default favorite book's probably Kurt Vonnegut, Breakfast of Champions.
Nice. What's your big takeaway from that book?
Just perception. I mean, the beginning of the book opens up and there's a guy walking around who just realized he's the only human sentient being on the planet. Everybody else he thinks is robots. So just from that spin alone, and then it goes into a whole thing on time and
Yeah.
perspective. Humans are stuck in this perspective of linear time the way it is, and the book breaks it down so that doesn't exist anymore. And it's, I don't know, just mind-opening.
Sure. Okay, you get to have dinner with one person, either past or present. They can be past or still here. Who would you want to have dinner with, and what would you ask them?
I've thought about that question often. That's a tough one. Tori Amos has been one of my idols since I was a teenager, so she's probably still, in my top 5 people. I'd want to ask her all sorts of questions about how she creates her music and her art. But at the same time, I think I just want to know her as a person too, because she's obviously a very interesting, creative person, and I don't know, I just want to know about her day-to-day life too.
Sure. Don?
I think it's a difficult question because I kind of do believe don't meet your heroes. You know that saying?
Mm.
Yeah, I kind of believe in that. So I can't, top of my mind, I'm not really sure, but probably I'd just say Abraham Lincoln, and I'd say, can you pass the potatoes?
That would be a good one for sure.
Yeah, because there's always the risk of them just not living up to your expectations.
Well,
so,
yeah, you have such expectations about these people you look up to, that you have this distance, and they're human. They could be having a bad day. They could just not be that charismatic.
Yeah.
They may be so introverted they can't really connect to people one-on-one too. So it's difficult to think about it that way.
Interesting. I've always had a belief, and it's something I try to share with my kids and any young people that I coach, is the only hero you should ever have is yourself. Because then you'll never be let down. Now, you may let yourself down. If you look in the mirror and that guy or lady in the mirror is supposed to be your hero, you might have to go, maybe I let you down today. But they can never let you down. Yeah, interesting. That's always, when you said that, I was like, gosh, that's always been something I've preached, is like, you should always be your biggest hero.
Yeah.
It's hard, easy to say, hard to do.
I know, but it's possible. Takes work.
It's a good goal
for sure.
To try and
until you become your own biggest hero, you got to be your own biggest cheerleader.
Yeah. And that's constant.
Always.
Workshop, individual self-workshop.
For sure. It's an ever-going journey. That's awesome. So Abe Lincoln's going to pass you the potatoes.
Well, you said I had to ask him something. So I'm going to ask him to pass me the potatoes.
All right. I want to know, you guys feeling warmed up? You good?
Yeah.
Any other of those tough questions?
No, those are tough
I love those questions. Honestly, it's one of my favorite parts of the show because every guest gets to do it. So I just always compare like people, like what their answers are. I got to tell you, one of my favorite food on the island still was Scott Savage way back on like episode 52 or something. And he took agave with him so he can make tequila. Just good thinking.
Yeah.
All right. So here's something cool that I want the community to understand and the difference between full-time travel RV world and a lot of people's normal world, right? So just picture this. You're at the shopping mall and you're getting ready to back out. People still go to the shopping malls. I don't even know what they're called. Lifestyle centers or whatever. You're shopping. It's crowded. The parking lot's full. And you're about to back out and somebody's waiting for your spot. They're usually very impatient, honking at you, giving you the hand to get going. They're not very nice. Now flip it to camping, where somebody's waiting for your spot, and they walk by to ask if you're leaving, and they go get the pass to take your spot early, and you strike up a conversation, and then lo and behold, you actually realize you like each other, and then you get to spend Christmas. So that's our story. Yeah. That's how I met Don and Mela, is they actually wanted our camping spot in New Mexico. So I just, when I was thinking about that earlier, I was like, that's so funny, because in our regular world, you'd have been like, get out of my spot, and I'd be like, give me a second. And now here we're like, oh yeah, dude, take my spot. Matter of fact, let's stay in touch, and we'll travel a little bit. So
I know what you mean. I can distinctly remember just waiting there, just thinking, what's taking these guys so long? Like, you just wait until you see that they pressed on the brake lights come on, and you're like, okay, finally, got it moving. Let's get it in gear, pedal on the right.
So you guys are out traveling full time now. You've been out about 5 months, 6 months?
We've been living in a bus for 6 months, but traveling for about 4.
Okay. Now, and so they're doing the full bus life gig, and they have a very nice setup. I want to know, how did your backgrounds, because Mela, you were a dancer and ran a Pilates studio, and Don, you're in the music industry. How did your background kind of help you adjust to this life? Or what strengths has it given you that you're like, okay, I'm comfortable here?
Well, I don't know if it really did. I don't know if that side of, for me personally, I don't know if that creative side helped me adjust to this lifestyle. I perhaps in the dance world am used to different situations and exploring different ideas, as you might be a different person or character. So I think change is perhaps something I'm comfortable with, but I don't know how much of that is influenced from the dance and how much of it is influenced from other things in life.
Sure.
I've moved a lot in my life. I don't remember the count anymore, but I've lived in a lot of different houses. I've lived in a lot of different continents, not just countries. So I think all the moving I've done in my life, not that I was traveling full time, but I have just moved house
Yeah.
and to different countries so many times, and I feel like that probably influenced how easy the transition was for me.
Very cool. Don?
I think for me, I was already living like a digital nomad lifestyle, even though I still had a home base in Los Angeles. And I don't mean it to say that I was just traveling for pleasure. I was traveling for work. So as I was composing music, I was also working on commercials and advertising commercials and things like that. And we'd fly all over the world, and I'd always just be working on music projects in my hotel room at night between gigs or days off and things like that. So, some of the biggest projects I did when I started out in music, I was actually on the other side of the world, even though the directors were in London or Los Angeles. So I already knew it was possible to travel and do the things that I had been working towards doing. So I felt like the possibility was already there. Like I felt like I practically was doing it because at one point I was traveling 6 months of the year and just paying rent at the place in Los Angeles, but I'd be traveling the rest of the time and working. So yeah, I think that's what kind of made me feel comfortable.
It's interesting. And I asked that question because I've met so many musicians, dancers, like artsy creatives out here. So it almost makes me believe that when I'm still studying, and it's not I'm not ready to release my scientific data yet, but it almost makes me wonder if because you don't have to impromptu if there's a mistake made in a dance floor, right? Like you can't just stop in front of the audience. You got to flow with it and problem solve. If that doesn't kind of lead itself to this life, which is very much unstructured.
That's a good point. Another thing that comes to mind now that you've said that is perhaps that as an artist, you're maybe opening your mind and vision to different ways of living, and it's not as scary. I think this lifestyle seems scary to people who have lived a very structured life and haven't, considered different options. Whereas I think artists are more likely to be thinking, well, this is different, and that's okay. I like different.
Yeah. What do you think, Don?
Well, I think from in a similar way that Mela's talking about it being different, I think that in the U.S. especially, the culture, the government programs, they don't support artists as small businesses. It's not supported here the same way it might be in many other places. So you're already taking so many risks trying to live life as an artist, especially if you're trying to be a commercial artist, that the idea of just getting rid of another traditional pillar of the culture and being a nomad makes it less scary because you've already had to do that so many times. You don't, there's no fund or program that just because I'm a musician means that somebody's going to make sure I got a place to live when I don't have a gig,
Yeah, and that was a fascinating conversation we've had around the campfire before, is you guys stressing the importance, or what I picked up was the importance of like Europe having the dole in certain countries that allows artists to really explore their creativity, but still have a little bit of a fallback if they're in downtimes. Where over here, like you guys, I mean, you know way more about that world than I do. It's kind of feast or famine. Like you're either in and making it, or you're picking up side jobs to support that hustle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you're always hustling to some degree if you're a young artist or if you're looking to break into a different kind of area of art. So
yeah. For those of you listening, you're picking up on Mela's accent. She is from South Africa.
Maybe they're not.
They are, because the quality comes through, and they're like, "Wait a second, where is she from?" So, Mela, tell me how your family back in South Africa took the news when you called and told them of you and Don's master plan for the bus?
Oh, they were super excited.
Really?
Yes, super excited. So my mom, actually, I guess it's in our blood. We had a caravan growing up, and we would go on school holidays off in our caravan camping. So I grew up with that, but again, it was just vacation. It wasn't full time. And we had a combi too. You know what a combi is? It's a VW van, the hippie type of van.
Oh,
that
yeah.
everybody used to live in
Yeah.
the 60s. Okay, that's what we had too. And my mom, when she was growing up, her family actually, they had a caravan and a Land Rover. And they spent quite a bit of time traveling around Southern Africa, not just South Africa, but Southern Africa. And so they'd lived that way for a certain amount of time. And I recently found out that my great-grandfather, when his wife died, I think it was around the 50s, and he decided to get rid of everything and move into a van and travel full-time. So... which that I only found out recently. But yeah, my parents were excited. My aunts and uncles, my mother's brothers and sisters, who had also traveled in a caravan when they were young, were super excited and supportive and have enjoyed watching all of our videos that we've made because, it's something that obviously excites our whole family.
So when you say a caravan,
Yes.
is that like a little minivan, like a Dodge Caravan, or does that have a different term in South
No,
Africa?
a caravan is pretty much what you'd call a camper or a
Oh,
trailer
okay.
here. Like,
Yeah.
it's not an Airstream, but it would be something you tow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering. I was like, okay, what is she? Because I wasn't sure. I had a lot of visuals on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just going back in time, like, I don't know, caravan. It could be a covered wagon. Could be a Dodge minivan.
Yeah. No, they have caravans there. I don't know if there's RVs. I've never seen an RV
Okay.
in South Africa.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
but they were excited.
they were very excited.
They weren't questioning your choice of judgments with this crazy American or anything.
My parents have never really judged too many of my choices once I've become an adult. But I think both of them being artists too, they
Okay.
support all my crazy choices.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look back and I go, wait, why didn't you say to me X, Y, and Z about when I made this decision? Because it wasn't exactly the smartest thing to do, but they've always supported my choices as an adult, even though they've sometimes been risky.
Yeah.
But they've all worked out, so
They all work out one way or the other,
yeah.
for sure. How about your family, Don?
I think they got excited about it. One reason being is because when we told them what we were doing, we said that we'd ask them, could we move back in with you guys and live in the basement?
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't even finish the sentence, and my dad said, my mom and dad always talk to me on speakerphone. I didn't even finish the sentence, and my dad said, your mom's nodding up and down. Yes, you guys can move here. So I think they were excited not only to be able to spend some time with us, which was great. I loved being able to spend more time, quality time. We were all there pretty much 3 years living with them.
While we converted the bus.
Yeah, while we converted the bus as adults instead of just,
Right.
different. It's a whole different story when you're, in your 40s living with your parents than when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And just getting to spend time with them, and also my dad loves projects, so he was excited to be involved.
Okay.
And he really helped us out a lot with the build, and I think they were excited about us having this adventure. I know they had talked about getting an RV and maybe doing national park camp hosting and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's something they will get into, but I think they had a passion for it.
They did.
They've driven around the country several times. So
Okay.
So yeah, they were excited about us getting on the road and seeing what happens.
Yeah. No, it's honestly, I think, and tell me your guys' take on this. I have yet to meet a person on the road that's older than me that said, oh, you shouldn't be doing this now. You should have waited till you're older.
Yeah.
They almost always say, "Man, you're a good age, but I wish I had done it even younger than you."
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, you
Right.
you had mentioned I don't know if you talked about it on the podcast, but you mentioned your son Trey.
Yeah,
He's 21
yeah,
and he's got a bus.
yeah.
He's converted. He's living in it. I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have done that.
Now here's what I'll tell you. That is that's all Andrea.
Yeah.
I was not I would not have led him to that lifestyle. My ego would have been too big as a dad, and like I've talked about this. That was complete. I had to step back when he said that's what he wanted to do. First, I said, "I love you, son. I support you, but I can't guide you here. I don't know. This is your mom's deal." So Andrea actually led him through that whole process, and it's been fascinating because they've gotten a lot closer throughout it. But it's a challenge to watch him walk away from a college scholarship and go live in a bus, but he's happy, and that's all you want in life.
Yeah.
And I think
Everybody
that's
has
what
to
parents
find their
say.
own route, right?
For sure.
You can't force something. Yeah.
No. So how did the name Rehabit8 come about?
Well, we were playing with the idea of what are we doing? We're changing our habitat, and we had a lot of different versions of habit. We're changing our habits, our daily habits, and our habitat. And so we were playing with those words a lot. And we had 3 cats at the time. I think the top one on our list was a 3-cat habitat.
That was going to be the name of our channel.
But we knew our older cat, she was old, and it would be devastating to still be called 3-cat habitat if we didn't still have 3 cats. And she did pass before we got on the road. So I'm glad we didn't go with that name, even though it was cute. But we were playing with those words, and then we were also at the same time trying out different kinds of ways of traveling. We rented an RV and an Airstream and other tiny homes. And we were actually driving to stay in an Airbnb Airstream. And, all these things are going on in our heads. And we drove past this mountain where somebody had graffitied an 8 on the rock. Now, I don't like graffiti on a rock, but I saw that 8. And Don's lucky number is 8. It's on his arm.
I'm kind of obsessed with the number 8. So.
And then I just thought of how, we could put the 8 into it. So we came up with Rehabit8, like a play on the whole word. I thought it was just fun to add the 8 in there, being his lucky number. It just kind of fit. But we were also on this kick of reducing, recycling, reusing. So that's where the re came from, because we were just trying to live a more sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah, I think for a little while we even had like a tagline, like reduce, create, rehabitate. Like,
oh, nice.
That was kind of how.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of all came together that way.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So Rehabit8 became the name of the YouTube channel, and kind of put you on this new course you're on, where you roll into campgrounds and people are excited to see you drive in before you even met them, because they feel like they know who you are.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they just are like, "Hey, what's this bus? We want to see this bus."
Yeah. What? All right, I gotta know then. What is your obsession with the number 8?
I don't know exactly.
When did it start?
Oh.
When you were 8?
No, probably when I was a young adult, maybe in my 20s.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that the first time it like solidifies for me is I love roulette.
Okay.
So I'll play a handful of numbers on roulette, and I only will play straight up numbers, and I'll always play a ton of money on 8.
Yeah.
And so many times I've just been in like a silly situation, like at a roulette table, 3 hours before your flight, and then you hit, and I'm like, well, I got $3,000 more than I had yesterday. Let's not fly. Let's not head home. Let's go do something else instead. And it's just happened so many times. And at one point, I actually put a book out of photographs of the number 8. you find the infinity sign
Yeah.
and the number 8. They look so common, and you
Yeah.
find it. I just would run into it constantly, so I just
Okay.
had hundreds and hundreds of photos. So I just
Have you researched what the number 8 means for you? Done any dabbling in that?
Not really, no.
All right. Well, I know a couple of our listeners are big numerologists. They're big
Uh-huh.
into the number science, so I'll have them try to reach out to you afterwards and explain what that
Yeah,
might mean, at least in
that'd be-
theory.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, so we got the bus. You're out. The build. You guys did a fantastic job on YouTube chronologizing that and sharing that story. And you had no experience doing it.
No. I mean, I had pretty much only like hammered a nail into the wall to hang a picture. That was pretty much my experience going in. Don had a little bit more, but
Yeah, when I was a kid, I worked like helping frame houses or
Yeah.
roof houses and things like that.
But nothing this big.
No, I mean, you're building a house, but you have all the challenges of building a tiny house and all the challenges of the obstacle of it in a vehicle where there's restrictions everywhere you turn. So, we didn't know exactly how difficult it would be or how long it would take.
Yeah.
But I think I just always knew we'd figure it out.
So when did you guys decide, or talk us through the conversation you two had when you're like, not only are we going to do a bus, we're going to move to Indiana, build it out by ourselves, and you share it with the world on YouTube exactly what we don't know. How
Well-
did that conversation come about? Like, talk me through that.
It all pretty much happened in one evening, because Mela would be at the studio, and she'd come home, and I try to make sure she had dinner ready, and we were eating pretty healthy. We were in really good shape, feeling good about life, but wanting a change. And she just turned and said, "What if we bought a bus and turned it into a house, and we could travel around? Do you think your parents would let us stay at their property to convert it?" And I said yes. Like I knew I didn't even have to think about it.
Right.
And within another week or so, we were completely, like, that was our focus. Like, that was what we were doing. And I had mentioned it to a couple friends, and one friend said, "Oh, you got to document it."
Sure.
And we kind of took that to an extreme by doing, weekly vlog videos to share everything about the process.
But this had been a long monthly conversation before we reached that point too. We'd been watching tiny house videos and bus conversion videos, but we'd also been playing with like lots of different ideas.
Like moving to Belize.
Yeah,
or
moving to Belize, moving to
South
Hawaii,
Africa.
moving to South Africa. Like there were a lot of other things that were on the list of possibilities, and we explored a lot of them and didn't feel comfortable with any of them. But moving across the country and converting a bus, somehow we did feel comfortable. It just felt
What about the
right.
sharing it on YouTube? Because that's it's one thing to film. Like, I think almost everybody in society now takes videos with their camera and stuff, but it's a whole nother beast to put it on YouTube and just see what the world thinks.
I guess it was a little intimidating. Don already was on YouTube, so I was a little nervous about sharing it with the world.
Yeah.
But he was already had a YouTube channel for his music business, and he was used to dealing with trolls and things like that. And his attitude is just like, let them be, whatever. And so with his easygoing attitude about it all, I was convinced that it would be okay, and we could always stop it if we weren't okay with it. But I think creating the videos was very natural for us. As you say, everybody's got a camera on them all the time videoing, and we'd be videoing everything we were doing anyway for our own records. And we knew our family and friends were excited about this and wanted to see, and we were sure other people would enjoy seeing it too. So it was a very natural thing for us to do. And like Don was saying today to somebody, during the bus build, it was actually a great outlet for us because the bus was hard and challenging and something we'd never done before. But creating a video was something that was a easy outlet for us. In between that build.
Yeah, it was very much like one of the things we got excited about. Like
Right.
we wanted to build a really nice home. We didn't just want to build out a bus conversion. We wanted to build a nice tiny home. And after we'd planned it out and started the build, then we were construction workers or, finishing designers and all these things that are tedious that we didn't know how to do. But working on the videos was fun. Like creating the videos is exciting and fun. It's like that's where we were able to stay sane and use our creative passion in the project. After you do the design, you know what colors things are and how things go together. And, there's only so much interior design in 280 square feet.
Sure.
But the videos, every one of them is a artistic challenge. How do you make it go together?
Mm-hmm.
How does the music work? How do you keep it so it's interesting or engaging? Or
Sure.
How do you try, just trying to do that and learning about it. Every video we learn something new.
Yeah, that's good. What was the biggest fear you faced in this transition, and what did you do to overcome that?
The biggest fear. I'm a very anxious person, so I guess I'm fearful about a lot of it. Just, I guess I was more fearful in the build because I had no clue what I was doing, and I put my faith in Don. And I realize now, it's funny because we joke about it now, but when that day we had that evening, we had that discussion to say, when I said, why don't we do a bus conversion? Do you think your parents will let us stay in their basement while we do it? And he was like all happy and excited and yes, let's do this. And then I was like, but I don't got this, right? I don't know how to do any of this and I can't do this. So I need you to tell me, can you do this? Because I've never seen you do this.
Right.
And he was like, oh, yeah. And I should have known better than that. Well, when you say, oh, yeah, it'll be fine, it doesn't mean you actually have it all figured out. It just means you will figure it out. What you don't know. So, it's funny now to me because I'm like, oh, that's what he meant for that moment. He didn't mean he knew how to do the electric and the plumbing or any of that. He just meant he'll figure it out. And he says that to me all the time. I'm like worrying about something. And so I guess Don gets me over my fear because I'm always like, how are we going to do this? And he goes, awesome. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out.
Yep. I say that a couple times a day.
And he does. So I guess Don got me over my fears.
And what about you, Don? What was the biggest thing, not even necessarily a fear, just maybe a mental challenge that you had to face and overcome?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, many people can do a bus build in 3 months or 6 months or something. And we didn't have the skill set. So we did have to learn, or I had to learn, or Mela and I and my dad had to learn all together, like as we would work on things, like how do you make walls that have curves in them because there's no right angles in the bus? How do you plumb? How do you make a faucet work? How do you wire up electricity? For every single project was another thing we had to figure out. So it's not really a fear, but the biggest challenge I knew was going to be not looking at it as a giant project.
Oh, sure.
Breaking it down, like, what are we doing today? And that way I was able to get up and be working on one thing during the day, and then there'd be something else I knew we were going to do next week, and then I would figure it out while I was dreaming at night. Like, that's how we're going to do that part next time. So that was the thing, like breaking it down into chunks.
Yeah.
Not trying to think of it as a giant project.
Yeah. Now, that's good. Chunking is a very good strategy for a lot of things in life, breaking things down into manageable chunks. What would you say was your favorite part of the build? Something that you look back now on and you're like, oh, that was the moment where like you laughed the most or just enjoyed the most?
I'm going to say the backsplash.
You really like that backsplash.
It was peel and stick backsplash for the kitchen, and nothing looked finished in that area. There was no, I think we just got the kitchen countertop on. Some of the cabinets weren't painted. Some of the cabinets didn't have doors yet. And we just, literally peeled the back off, stuck it on the wall, and it was done, and it looked beautiful.
Yeah, probably was the easiest job we did.
Yeah. And you were like, yes.
Well, it was such a transformation.
Yeah.
Like so quickly. Yeah, that was
Yeah, I think for me the funnest part was when we actually started working on the interior and the furniture, like building the shell of the bus, because we completely stripped it down and rebuilt and did insulation and walls and windows and all kinds of things. And it just felt like forever. And when we actually started building furniture on the inside, that excited me, because then you could start seeing it looking like something, like you had the design. I enjoyed the designs phase too, but that's just, pre-everything. But to actually see it start coming to life is where I felt like I got excited.
Yeah. And that's 3 years is a long process to be building out.
It is, but with this size of bus and to do it the way we wanted to do it,
Yeah.
we stripped it all the way to the metal. And then if there were a few little rust spots, we treated those. Then we re-insulated and put all new walls and floors and everything in. And that took more time than building out the interior.
Sure.
So if we wouldn't have taken all our windows out, if we wouldn't have stripped everything down inside and just built on what was there, we could have done it in maybe 9 months, maybe 12 months.
And the fact that we were making videos, that slowed us down, because we had to make sure we had cameras set up. I mean, there's nothing like, trying to work on something and then realizing the battery died and you got to go get a new battery, and then you got to talk to the camera, and then you need to have time to edit the video. So I feel like the videos probably doubled our time, but I mean, we 100% would make the videos again. If we had to go back and do it again, we'd still make the videos, even though it made it take longer. And obviously it was rewarding for us to have those videos. So even though we had the time for it to take longer, sometimes people don't have that luxury.
Sure.
They need to get it done in a certain amount of time, because then they have to be out of that space. So we had the luxury of, I mean, maybe Don's parents would have kicked us out of the basement eventually, but they were politely letting us stay as long as it took.
But I think it's I always believe the world is working for you and things aren't happening to you. So even though it took you 3 years, like the bonus side of that, or the working for you side is that was 3 years that your following really got to build and show up. Whereas if you'd have crammed all the videos in 3 months, maybe you wouldn't have the longevity you had.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and originally we said it'll be great because once we start traveling, we could start a YouTube channel. And then when I'd mentioned one of my friends said, you should document the build. And I just thought it was kind of clicked. It was like, we got to start the YouTube channel right now so that we've got stuff to share. And we wanted to share it with family around the world, No,
it's worked out fantastic. You guys put out really good content. It's fun to watch. I do wish we'd have had the real life version of Don running with his pants down around his ankles because he thought the bus was moving. But the reenactment worked. He hurdled you. That was good.
I so wish we had that on camera too. He probably doesn't, but I do too.
Oh, that's funny stuff. All right, Don, tell me something you've learned about yourself that you did not expect, but it came as a result of pursuing this dream.
Well, I mean, it's a revelation I think that we've kind of talked about the past couple of days as we've been hanging out, which is that I've always had goals, dreams, ambitions. I've always been working on something or trying to pursue or make bigger. I've had a couple different businesses I've tried to grow, and so I'm always worried and thinking about that and planning, and there's always like this bit of anxiety with that. And I think, like Mela said, we've been traveling a little over 4 months. And like this week is the first time that I kind of got to a place. It surprised me that I already did so much hard work. We already did so many things to get where we're at right now. And it's okay for me to be present right now and enjoy the next few months or year until some other fire in me kind of builds again, for me to say, okay, I really want to pursue or build or create this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have plenty of other little projects that we're kind of working on, and I still have my music business.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that is more important for me now than enjoying my life.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest thing that's been a surprise.
That's awesome. Mel, what about you? Something you learned about yourself that now you look back like, wow, that was in there.
I think something that is sort of on my mind all the time, and I don't know that I've fully learned it. It's maybe a journey that I'm on, and I don't know if I ever will fully learn it, but is coping with anxiety. Like, a lot of the reasons I wanted to make this change was because I felt like I wasn't coping in a busy, hectic city life being a studio manager. I loved my studio. I loved my clients. I loved the community around it. But I was so stressed out, and everything I had to do to cope with all the stress and anxiety I was dealing with was just not worth it. And so we made this change, and I've definitely seen huge improvements having left that lifestyle and left the big city. But with that said, you can't run away from your anxiety or anything else in your life, any of your problems. They're going to still be there. So choosing this lifestyle isn't going to just completely make them disappear. I mean, there was a lot of hard work. There's been a lot of therapy. But there's definitely something about this lifestyle that is very comforting and calming. Does that mean it's always comforting and calming? No. Travel days are stressful and filled with anxiety, but I'm learning that I have to figure out what I can cope with. I can't put myself in a bubble because then I won't really be living. So I want to live a fulfilling life that is meaningful to me, but how do I cope and manage that anxiety in the meantime, because I'm never going to be able to run away from it. Because I feel like sometimes choosing this lifestyle, like, and leaving something gives you this idea of like you're leaving something behind about you, but you're not. You are going on that journey, and you have to really deal with yourself a little more. And I am learning there are certain days I might just be like, nope, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And other days I force myself to sit with that anxiety and feel it.
I love it. And what do you guys think of something that I've noticed for me in my journey of self-discovery is that this lifestyle allows me the time and the space to actually sit with it?
Yeah, I think, we're lucky, we're fortunate to be able to do this. But we also worked hard to make this a reality for ourselves. It wasn't just, easy. We didn't just have all the money in the world that we could just go out and sit in the woods and think.
Sure.
We're still working, and we've worked hard to get to this place that we can support ourselves in this lifestyle. But it gives us so much flexibility.
Yeah.
We're on our own terms, and I think that is, that's what's making it possible for us to sit and be with our thoughts and feelings more.
Well, honestly, this is one of the things I love. One I love about you two, not YouTube, you two, and this this lifestyle for me is there's just so much honesty, right? Like, I can't remember having a conversation like that with one of my neighbors in neighborhoods that we lived in for decades.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, in the city or the hectic life, there's always a little bit of posturing, or there's just not time to have a meaningful conversation. Everybody's got to go. But, you know, we've been together like a week now. I feel like we've had really good conversations
Yeah.
that you can explore and go like, wait a second, what do you mean with the anxiety? Like, more to me about sitting with it. How can somebody create that space for themselves? Or what are some thoughts you have if maybe they don't want to live in a bus, they don't want to travel on an Airstream, but they know they want to sit with things a little more, they want to self-explore? What thoughts do you have on how they can maybe do that at home?
Well, I would say one thing I've kind of practiced different times in my life is eliminating noise. And that can be everything from, you know, a financial burden that's always in the back of your head, and how do you cut back your spending so that you can free up a little time that you were dedicating to try to make money, so that you have that time just for yourself. And that that noise can literally be being in the city. How can you get out, you know, drive 35 minutes and get out in the woods and, you know, spend one day of the week out in the woods walking? I think for some people that meditation can happen if you're walking or if you're making music. For me, it can be almost instant if I get out and I'm walking, especially in forested woods. That's really where my sweet spot is. What about you, Mela?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think kind of similar to what you said earlier of make yourself your own hero. Like, I think you have to put yourself first. You have to learn. And that was a hard thing for me to do because I didn't do that for many, many years. And I had to learn to put myself first, to actually take care of myself. So even if there was work demanding my attention, that I had to make decisions of it can wait, that person can wait. You know, I'm going to put my phone on silent over this time so that I can have space for me and to cut out all that extra noise that is around us, and give myself what I need. What that is you need could look different on different people. It could be nature, it could be exercise, it could be watching a movie.
Yeah. And I think, especially in our society now, I mean, whether you're in a city or not, if you could just turn your phone off, put it down, and walk away from it for an hour a day, I think it's amazing what might happen.
And that's funny, right? Because we both make part of our living by being connected and sharing stories. But I also noticed that we all take time to not be on our phones. Like, I don't remember once being in a conversation with either of you two, and the conversation has this awkward pause because somebody's on their phone and totally missed the last 4 minutes of discussion, you know? Right. So it's possible. What is maybe like 2 or 3 things from the two of you, advice to somebody that's just, they can see that dream in front of them. They go to bed and it's vibrant and it's there, but they wake up and they're just not getting that first step towards it. How, or what advice would you give somebody to get moving towards chasing their dreams?
I've got several things I would say. One, I think similar to what I talked about before about cutting out the noise, there's going to be all these distractions around you. If you've got a support network, make sure they know you need the space and the support to make these goals. We talked about achieving things in chunks.
Yep.
Break things down so you don't look at this giant project or a giant goal. You have, you know, baby steps to it, and just accomplish one of those every week or every 2 days, whatever you think you can manage. And then last thing I think is seek out people with similar passions. If you can find other people with the same passions, it's amazing what happens when you're able to connect with people that have those similar dreams or goals, because you start to realize that you're not in this developmental stage alone.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, maybe share tips about how to get further along, but more importantly, you just have an understanding that there's a reality to achieving whatever that dream is.
I feel like I have really learned to trust my gut on things. So there have been a few times in my life where there have been big steps that I've taken that are super, super scary. But before making that decision to dive into it, I sit and listen to my body and what is my body telling me. Because sometimes if it's too much, your body will tell you. And it might be a hard thing for you might be like, it's giving me nothing, it doesn't talk. But if you really listen to your body, you will feel things. Like it might just be a pain. You might feel a pain, or you might feel a calmness or an excitedness. And for me, if I have those feelings inside of myself, then I know I can trust that this is the right thing for me to do, and I can then go full on with believing in myself. But if my body is doubting it, it's not going to work out. If
Sure.
my mind's trying to fight what my body is telling me, it probably won't work out. So,
Interesting.
listen to your gut.
So you sit with that?
Yeah, and that might, again, you could sit with that for a long time, or it could be something you feel in just a few hours. But I do believe that my gut has told me, just like it tells me I'm anxious. And that's, where I have a somatic disorder. So it does come out in my body. Maybe it's easier for me in that way.
Sure.
Because I do feel a lot physically in my body, which can be awful. But at the same time, I can tell if my body's excited to go forward with something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot we don't understand about what our bodies can tell us yet. There's a lot of scientific evidence about the gut brain, but I think there's a lot we probably still don't fully understand. But I think we all have the answers within us of which paths to take.
Well, the gut instinct, follow your gut, has been a saying that's been around forever. So clearly people have known it.
Yep.
But I think it goes back to your guys' point earlier. We don't give ourselves time to listen to what our body's saying. We don't give ourselves space to quiet the noise, to listen to ourselves. Do you guys have because you got quite the following on YouTube, and I haven't read through your comments, but sometimes I find the comments of things to be hilarious, what people share. Have you gotten a comment or that you would want to share that you were just like, oh my gosh, what is this comment on a video? Or a funniest thing that stood out to you?
Well, we get a lot of comments on our videos.
We get a lot.
And in some ways, I think maybe it's not a specific comment, but I think the thing that surprised me is it's kind of a community. Like, there's people that we read their comments every week, and we respond back. And so you build up this relationship through comments, which, and just this week we ran into, through you guys, we met one of the people who watches our channel. Yeah. And Mela knew instantly who she was, and I was like, oh, that's right, that's who she is. And so it's like, wow.
That's funny.
You get to have a real meet up in physical space with this person who we've been, chatting with in the comments for 3 years, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the funniest comment we have lately is that so many people are so disturbed by the fact that we haven't put any doors on our bathroom yet. We've said many times in many videos that there is a plan and we will do it eventually. Like, it's always been a plan. We haven't completed our bus 100%, and bathroom doors just didn't matter. Once we'd been living in a tiny space and so close. I mean, we glamped in that bus where we didn't have anything in the beginning. we had a bucket on the stairs, so you were somewhat hidden from the other. And we'd just say, turn your head around. Like, so once you've been through that together, like doors in the bathroom just don't matter. We got so much more privacy now than we did when we were glamping. But I think it's just, if you've never lived in a tiny home or on the road like that, then it's probably just something you've never. Oh, here's a funny comment.
Yes.
So now I've got to give this one. Somebody who was commenting about the bathroom doors was like, I mean, I'm pretty close with my husband and everything, but like, what about on Taco Tuesday? That one cracked me up. But yeah, if you haven't lived that way, then maybe it does seem weird or gross or, but like, we've become so close and comfortable with each other. And when you're in a tiny space anyway, it doesn't matter all that much. But if you're listening, YouTubers, we do have a plan to eventually put some doors on the bathroom.
That's hilarious. Oh man, I want to again thank the two of you for taking time out of your day to allow us to share your story, and it's very humbling, and I can't thank you enough for trusting us to share your story with our community, and for having the strength to do what you do and share your story with the world, and just put it out there, because somebody somewhere has to hear that. And everybody's story has power, and if more people share their story, the world would just be a better place. So I
think it's great what you're doing. I absolutely love it, because it makes people feel less alone. Mm-hmm. And I have, in some darker moments in my life, wish I'd heard your podcast. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So what you're doing is great, and I'm sure you're reaching so many people with this, so
thanks for having us.
We're humbled to be here, to be part of this.
It's awesome.
We appreciate it. Give us the handles where everybody can follow you guys. Where do you want our community? We'll put it in the show notes, but also just air it here.
Okay.
So Rehabit8 is spelled REHABIT, and then the number 8. So it's all just one word, and that's pretty much it for everything for YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook,
and website.
And Rehabit8.com for our website too.
So we detailed the whole build, and we also documented on the blog, and there's lists of everything we put inside that we built with, and how we built it.
Links to everything we used, and now there's travel videos.
Yep.
And so OPP community can get in, watch those videos. You can comment about the lack of bathroom doors and how you feel on it. And be sure to like and subscribe and follow these guys. They're doing great stuff out there, and we're all building one big community. So thank you guys again for joining us.
Thanks for having us, man.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.